Metroid Prime was my first ever Metroid title, but I can still recall the rampage online speculation and controversy regarding Nintendo's announcements that the 2002 game would be made by the damn unknown Retro Studios, and that it would be a first-person adventure, as opposed to shooter, pursuing the series' 2D roots. Critically, the game blew all expectations out of the water, and it's earned perfect scores all across the board, expanded the scope of the first-person shooter format, and not only brought Metroid to a new generation and dimension, but provided Nintendo with an exclusive first-person sci-fi franchise in the vein of Halo or Doom. Ever since late 2021, rumors had been circulating about remastered versions of the Wii's Metroid Prime trilogy for the Switch. Nintendo answered the speculation with a mic drop by both announcing and shadow dropping Metroid Prime Remastered on their February 8th Nintendo Direct, delighting fans worldwide and causing me to put everything on hold and revisit one of my favorite games of all time. As this would be my only third playthrough, which I gotta tell you I never finished the original Metroid Prime, but this is a different. I was definitely eager to explore whether or not Metroid Prime really was as amazing as my memories of it. But since I've been burdened in the past by uneven quality of Nintendo's Zelda remasters, which we do have a lot of them, I was also curious as to whether this remaster would be another disappointing effort, such as the Twilight Princess HD or Skyward Sword HD, or Rare Triumph like the Wind Waker HD. Seriously, Nintendo, how the hell you fuck up Wind Waker HD? This is one of my favorite games. You screwed up! As Metroid Prime's initial sales didn't set the world on fire, and Metroid Prime Trilogy near impossible to find, I'll provide an overview of the game before I get into the remastered. Now, Metroid has never really been a series to bombard you with cinematics and lore, and Metroid Prime Remastered is no exception. There are more cutscenes than seen in titles prior to the original release, and taggers full of stuff you can scan to learn the grander scale of things. But on the flip side, you don't have to. It's all completely optional, and you still get a fairly rewarding tale. While Metroid does have quite an interesting story behind it, and the rivalry between Samus and Ridley has become a thing of legend, the narrative has always been a little behind the scenes when compared to the actual gameplay. While the gameplay is distinct in terms of story, Super Metroid and the larger bulk of Metroid Prime feels like remakes of the original Metroid, and this is one of the main reasons. It isn't until you spend a little more time playing it that you will notice the differences. Metroid Prime didn't quite buck the trend, but it started to take the series in a stronger direction when it came to story. Metroid Prime Remastered follows the same narrative beats that in the original Metroid Prime, so don't be expecting any extra story content on lore. For better or worse, this is the same narrative experience as it was originally released on Nintendo GameCube, and later on the Wii. I mean, why mess with a classic, am I right? Right? I'm looking at you, Federation. Metroid Prime was the series' first foray into the 3D world outside of Samus' appearance in the Nintendo 64 Super Smash Bros. While heavily expected to be a third-person adventure, the world was shocked and naturally apprehensive when it turned out that we would be going behind the eyes of Samus in a first-person shooter style of gameplay. At the time of its original release, the world was still in its original boomer shooter phase. Most people were hailing titles like Half-Life and Time Splitters as the best of the genre had to offer, and many fans were worried that the Metroid style of gameplay wouldn't translate to the genre, especially on consoles. What instead happened was that Retro Studios created one of the most memorable gaming experiences of all time. So how about we check that out, okay? Metroid Prime fused the camera angle of the first-person shooters with the exploration of the then budding adventure subgenre which would become Metroidvania. If you want to know the meaning of this, you can check my review on Metroid Dread, which is right up there on the screen, so go there and check it out later. This created an amazing immersive experience, not only from the presentation, which I'll touch on later, but the game as a whole just felt like this new experience at the time, where you could see the cave depths, the true scale of things, and the pure intensity of battle. And let me tell you, these battles, they're really awesome. This was all while holding into the backtracking and curiosity triggering experience of the previous Metroid titles. While the initial space station section is quite linear, soon you'll be exploring the lush open plains of Tallon IV and the various other biomes of the planet. You can experience the desolate and sand-consumed Chozo ruins, the blistering heat of the Magmor caverns, and the bitter winter of the Penrana drifts. The areas are quite varied and feel so well designed to the point that they could have easily been based on an actual location. We all know by now the Metroidvania genre is generally comprised of rooms which either have puzzles or items required to pass, and Metroid Prime is no exception. The difference here is just how well they are designed. Metroid Prime's rooms feel more like one giant world waiting for you to explore and uncover its secrets. As you slowly make progress throughout the world, taking the fight into the space pirates, you'll be using Samus' visor a lot of scan throughout many things. This is your main interact button and not only activate things, but provides valuable intel on any of the planet's flora or fauna that you aim and hold the button down to do so. It's not quite as simple as it sounds though. Scanning requires you to be near your target while leaving you completely defenseless. You are unable to fight back in scan modes. The scan mode helps draw you into the world of Metroid and Tallon IV. As you start to learn more and more about the locales and what drew the space pirates to the planet, you become more immersed. The fact that it also helps you out by exploring how to tackle each enemy is also very handy. Unlocking guaranteed content depending on how much of the world you have scanned is just a digital cherry on top of this delicious cake. And this time the cake is true, it's not a lie. Of course, Samus has a gun, arm, and what fun it would be if the game just consisted of non-confrontational exploration with puzzle solving and scanning. Yes, Samus is ready to throw hands, and for the longest time, this was the best the series combat ever felt. Samus is an intergalactic bounty hunter, so she's quite handy with the cannon replacing one of her arms. Due to some fantastic controls, you never feel like any death was cheaper or unfair. You can lock onto an enemy and strafe or dodge, but as part of the many control options in the remastered version, more of this later, they have been tweaked in a way that is fairly able to play this much closer to other FPS games with free aim. This is something that requires you to hold the button down in the original and comes at the expense of movement. It's also worth noting that the first-person perspective helps when it comes to the feeling of combat and diversity in enemies. They can come from anywhere, up, down, left, right, behind you, under your feet, you just name it. You can be shooting at a ground enemy while a bird-like creature swoops in to try and chip away at your health. That said, the combat is still very much in line with what came before it. Every foe has a distinct pattern that it won't shy away from, and each enemy has a specific weak point. Outside of the game's outstanding collection of boss fights with both original and returning foes, the combat just doesn't quite stay engaging throughout. This is an issue that plagues the genre as a whole due to the amount of backtracking you'll have to do. You'll fight the same enemies over and over again as they tend to respawn each and every time you re-enter an area. While the combat is a little more urgent than that of the previous games, don't be expecting the parry fast that was presented in Metroid Dread. It's a serviceable combat system with some of the series' very best boss fights, but that doesn't save it from the eventual mundane feeling that creeps in towards the later half of the game. Yes, it introduces new enemies at a decent pace, but eventually you have seen all the combat on offer and you've seen enough to do for the backtracking. As you progress through Tallon IV, you gain more combat abilities such as firing missiles or different beams, eventually rediscovering the iconic ball ability, which sees Samus curling into a ball and dropping bombs. This formulates the bulk of your adventure, as with each upgrade you can access new areas and progress further not only into Tallon IV, but in the whole mystery of Metroid Prime. Outside of the abilities that you can unlock, there are also plenty of hidden missing and health items you can collect, which are usually well hidden. At least sometimes. These aren't essential to progress, but do give to that little edge and feel rewarding to find due to being locked behind environmental puzzles or tricky jumps. You'll be running, rolling, swinging, and rolling around the world of Tallon IV throughout the game's roughly, let's say maybe 14 to 15 hours runtime, which hits a rather sweet spot within the genre. The controls of Metroid Prime Remastered allows this all to feel as natural and fluid as you'd like. You can opt for the original controls, like in the GameCube ones, or if you're playing docked, there's even an option to play with the motion controls like the Wii, or with the gyro controls for those who have adapted to that thanks to the Splatoon. The main takeaway from this is Retro Studios have catered to everyone, and each control scheme feels just as viable as the others. There isn't just one that stands head and shoulders above the others. Although I do have to say that I prefer the GameCube controllers better than the other ones that we have. I don't know why, I guess it's just my cup of grace, and well, it's been a while since I played Metroid Prime, so yeah, I guess it is common use. Again, in terms of remastered editions, this isn't going to be for someone looking for a ton of new or cut content. Aside from extra concept art in the gallery mode, a hint mode you can activate, and the controller tweaks, the game has a little less content than it originally had. The normal missing feature is that currently there is no way to unlock the fusion suit for Samus, which was made famous in Metroid Fusion. While it would be great if it was added in via patch, this isn't exactly crippling omission of content. It's just something worth noting for more diehard of Chozonuts. See the pun I did? No? It didn't work, didn't it? The presentation in Metroid Prime Remastered is where you see the most effort has gone into remastering the title, and why the 40 euros or local equivalent price tag in your place is completely acceptable. The game runs at a consistent 60 frames per second at all times, both docked and handled, and no matter which way you choose to play the game, you're in for an absolute treat with the graphical overhaul the developers have given to this title. It's done in such a tasteful way that it has been improved, but it looks just as good as nostalgia-tinted memories of those who played the original GameCube release. I mean, seriously, every time I would go and jump into the water, there was this reflection of actually the water spilling out of the screen. That's actually awesome! Every texture looks so clean this time around. The lighting has been altered to look even better, and there are so many different lighting and particle effects going on that even as good as the previous titles looked, this is an undisputed visual giant of the Metroid series now. Yes, that means it has dethroned Metroid Dread, so suck it! It's that good of a remaster in the terms of the visuals. No offense, Metroid Dread, I know I loved you so much. With the enhanced visuals and smooth performance, it's just so easy to get absorbed into the atmosphere of Metroid Prime and Tallon IV. Noticing the way water droplets react to your movement, seeing the reflection of Samus' face on the visor, and just the amazing explosions are just some of the visual tricks that help you get fully immersed in the game. It just creates, or for some, recreates memorable aspects of this legendary title. The art direction is strong in Metroid Prime, and it is always an absolute triumph when it came to recreating the Riley Scott and H.R. Giger inspired visuals of the previous titles in a fully realized 3D world. There's just that perfect mix of sci-fi conventions with video game tropes that Nintendo has become so adept at creating for their titles. The audio in Metroid Prime Remastered has also been tweaked to be crisper and clearer. This works well through the small Nintendo Switch speakers, but sounds absolutely perfect throughout larger speakers or headsets. Again, for further ambient sounds and tunes make immersion inevitable. You know, actually my favorite song of this game is actually the Magmore Caverns, when you have that So what I was saying, hold on. warning alarms from your visor if you go to an area deemed too hot for your suit, and the screams of alien lifeforms paired with the visuals create a truly unforgettable experience. Aside from a few visual tweaks to cutscenes, there once again isn't much in terms of adding content that wasn't there. Instead, the team behind the remaster has focused on updating just about every aspect of the presentation to make the game look and feel like it's a modern release. Honestly, if you didn't know any better, you'd think this was a new and modern title. So in conclusion, Metroid Prime Remastered is the gold standard when it comes to remasters. It doesn't add anything of significance, but it's not a remake, nor does it to itself as one. Instead, it takes all the iconic aspects of the original title and makes sure they are of a standard that matches the current gaming standard. The game remains to be a gritty, fun, and immersive experience. While the combat isn't quite as good as the exploration, it still provides a must-play package not only for fans of the original, but also for people who may have joined the series a little late. We can only hope that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 aren't too far behind. If we get this remastered, I'm sure those two will come along. Hey Nintendo, I'm not gonna knock on your door again. So when are we gonna have Metroid Prime 4? Everyone's still waiting. You didn't answer me in the review of Metroid Prime, so I'm gonna still banging. Not even if I have to go to the Nintendo of Lisbon, you know? I'll go there and kick their asses and tell me where's the game. So, without further ado, this was my take on Metroid Prime Remastered. If you want to see more and more stuff, click in the link description down below, subscribe, and have a little bit of fun. Until then, I'll see you on the next video. See ya.